Hello, my name is Dan Murad. I'm CEO of ChemQuest Group, and it's my pleasure to join you today as the moderator for Innovation Summit 2022, the Case for Sustainability. ChemQuest is a leading international management consulting and technology development firm. My career spans 43 years within the specialty chemicals and case industries, having served as Global Vice President and Director of Roman Haas's industrial portfolio. The format for the webinar today is a virtual roundtable discussion relative to the role of sustainability in innovation. After the roundtable discussion, we'll take the remaining time for questions and answers. So we welcome our listeners to submit their questions. But should we run out of time and are not able to address a submitted question during the call, we will follow up with a response afterwards. Today, we've assembled an august group of 5 panelists representing leading global chemical companies. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kieran Smith, Eastman Chemical. Kieran is Global Marketing Director for the adhesives business. He's responsible for driving growth and innovation across hygiene, packaging, tapes and labels, building and construction, and tires. Since joining Eastman in 2005, Kieran has held various positions within the company, including leading marketing development initiatives in the specialty plastics business and developing new product innovations as Innovation Director. Kieran has spearheaded several sustainability initiatives. These include leading a platform to develop biodegradable thermoplastics for multiple end markets and applications. In his latest position, he worked with the adhesives team to develop a strategy to help meet the sustainability needs of attractive end-use markets. Kieran's prior experience with Borealis and GE Plastics, now Sabic IP, depth of knowledge, and passion for innovation has made him an invaluable collaborator for Eastman and its adhesive customers. Joining Kieran on the panel is Mr. Chris Fitzgerald. Chris is Global Vice President for Univar Solutions Global Case, Rubber and Plastic Additives Vertical. He spent the past 25 years in chemical distribution. Univar Solutions' dedicated market vertical delivers technical solutions and best-in-class supplier ingredients to virtually all case submarkets. Chris brings many years of experience in the case industry within multiple disciplines, including sales, product management, business development, and marketing. He has a demonstrated history of success working in the industry and is knowledgeable in polyurethanes, paints, thermoplastics, polymers, and many more technologies. Our third panelist is Mr. Torsten Schmidt. Torsten is Vice President Marketing Chemicals at Kratom. He joined Kratom in 2013 and assumed responsibility for Kratom's Cariflex business in 2014. In 2016, he took over Kratom's Performance Chemicals business. Since 2018, he is leading strategic marketing for Kratom's Pine Chemicals. He started his career in 1992 with Herbst AG, working in engineering, operations, strategy, and as business director with Herbst AG, Herbst Celanese, COSA, and Invista. Torsten holds a chemical engineering master's degree. Our fourth panelist is Dr. Ramesh Iyer. Ramesh is the Global Director of Sustainability at Dow Coatings and Performance Monomers. For the past 26 years, he led global marketing and business development teams at specialty chemical firms including Henkel Cognis, Evonik, and Solvay in the areas such as polymers for zero VOC coatings, specialty monomers and additives, lubricants, and plastic additives. Ramesh believes that our children lend us the Earth's resources and that we should make periodic interest and principal payments by responsibly using these resources today and in the future. Our fifth panelist is Ms. Ria Shurin. Ria is Director, Global Sustainability and Environment for Cabot Corporation. She has a BS in Chemical Engineering and has spent 35 plus years building a wide range of safety, health, environmental, sustainability, and product stewardship related experience globally in both private industry and consulting. Her career has had a strong focus on the technical, strategic, and management aspects of workplace safety, the environment, sustainability, and product stewardship. Prior to her current role at Cabot, she served as Vice President Global EHS, Product Stewardship and Sustainability for a global metalworking fluids company, combining her strategic knowledge and experience to build a world-class SHE sustainability and product stewardship organization. Welcome to our 5 panelists. After the roundtable discussion, we'll take the remaining time for Q&A just as a reminder. And also as a reminder, if we don't get to be able to respond to your questions, we will send you a response afterwards. Over the years, sustainability has been steadily evolving from being optional, nice to have, to becoming compulsory. More recently, its momentum has been accelerating and becoming standards-driven internationally, with investors and community leaders holding companies accountable for robust ESG policies. Currently, there's not a formal definition of sustainability. Many leaders and industries are adopting concepts and positioning aspects which they feel should be inclusive in the definition, but nothing has been finalized. As a result, we would like to propose a working definition of sustainability for the purposes of today's panel discussion, operating under the working definition provided by the UN World Commission, which states, quote, sustainability is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs with respect to the environment and their society or culture, while adhering to agreed upon guidelines of governance. It is the practice of considering people, planet, and profitability before taking action, end quote. As you can see, this definition identifies multiple stakeholders, namely society, people, financial stability. And that's not all. Given each company is challenged with executing on methodology for sustainability, measuring its progress, and creating value for various stakeholders I've mentioned, I would like initially for each panelist to explain their company's sustainability position and how these various views are nuanced within their respective organizations. I'd like to start and give the floor to Ramesh from Dow Chemical. Ramesh, please give us Dow's perspective on sustainability today.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for inviting me to this August panel of great marketing and sustainability professionals who are doing our part on behalf of our company and in our personal lives to drive sustainable mindset and sustainable activities in our lives and at work. At Dow, our ambition is to be the most innovative, customer-centric, inclusive, and sustainable material science company in the world. So within our ambition, we want to be a sustainable material science company in the world, and we live by these values. We like to divide our activities relating to sustainability at two levels, at the corporate level and at different business unit levels. At our corporate level, sustainability means creating adequate economic value for our shareholders and for ourselves for reinvestment and for growth. It's about maximizing safety in our operations and reducing our environmental impacts. It means investing in breakthrough technology that addresses society's persistent challenges. And it means investing to meet our own sustainability targets, measuring the progress of our sustainability strategy, and having a diverse workforce, an inclusive workplace, increasing employee retention and community engagement. And at a business unit level, typically we split it again in two ways. One is the making of our products, which we call as footprint, and then we enable our customers to become more sustainable, which we call as the handprint. And the third one is the blueprint, where we extend collaborative partnerships to the value chain to advance the cause of the entire value chain to become more sustainable. In the making of our products, sustainability pertains to sourcing and using raw materials in a responsible way, conserving and minimizing the use of resources such as energy and electricity, water and raw materials, reducing the quantity and impact caused by generated waste. This includes VOCs, CO2 emissions, disposed material and wastewater, and progressively substituting materials of concern. And in the use of our materials by our customers and at the end of life by our value chain, it's about enabling our customers to reduce their emission in a formulated product. In our case, that would be paints and coatings, increasing the durability and enabling recycling or reuse of the end products to advance a more circular economy, and to offer technology alternatives that enable our customers to eliminate their material of concern. So we start at the corporate level, we work it down to the business unit level, and it's multifaceted, as I pointed out. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Ramesh. Ria, I'd like to turn to you and have you give us your perspective from Cabot relative to sustainability.
So thank you, Dan. Cabot has had a long history of being a leader in sustainability, and sustainability has been embedded in our purpose as a company and is integrated in every asset of our business, whether you look at how we started with the use of pre-industrial waste streams that feed into the manufacture of carbon black, or our fence line partnerships with companies in our FMO business, where we take byproduct streams and process them further and then return them back to those customers. It has long been embedded in what we do. And as we continue to evolve and look forward to the future, we're always looking at opportunities within our organization to continue to identify opportunities to be more sustainable. Our sustainability program has a broad sustainability focus across three main pillars, and we set goals related in each of these areas, including caring for our people and our communities, whether that be retention and diversity and development of our employees, or community engagement, or acting responsibly for the planet, where we've established robust emissions reduction targets or energy goals, as well as certification of our locations to continue to move forward with strong footprint and safe processes. And then also finally building a better future together, where we focus on our value chain and engagement and collaboration with our customers and our suppliers along the supply chain, as well as further innovation around our products to enable not only our own reduction in our footprint, but also enable our customers to be more sustainable. And as Dan has mentioned before, we see the pace of change around sustainability rapidly changing, And it's, as he said, no longer a nice to have, but a fundamental requirement, I think, an essential part of business. And we believe that our strong culture of sustainability leadership is a competitive advantage and a differentiator in the industry and with our customers. So we think it's a core part of our overall business strategy.
Thank you, Ria. Torsten, I'd like to turn to you now and have you give us Kraton's perspective on sustainability.
Thank you, Dan. And first and foremost, thank you to be on this panel with great colleagues. So when we look at sustainability, I think you can almost cut and slices in two pieces, is what needs to be accomplished and how do you actually accomplish it. And I think lots of the elements have been touched upon already. For us, it's a core element of what we're doing. And when we look at sustainability, we look at the impact that we make, certainly for our customers. That's what you try to accomplish. But you also look at it from the dimension of what does it do to our communities? Are we a good citizen in our communities? What does it do for our employees? Are we a good employer? That touches on the elements that, for example, Ramesh had already indicated. And finally, and last but not least, what does it do to our investors? So at the end of the day, those four dimensions, customers, communities, including your regulatory and compliance requirements, investors and employees, are the four dimensions of sustainability. So why do we do that? We are convinced it's for us a core strategic element to accomplish growth, but also to accomplish risk reduction. Many questions that are asked along these ways actually will help you to reduce your risk on multiple ends, and certainly improve productivity. At the end of the day, if you think about greenhouse gas emissions as a typical kind of one of the examples, or just resource efficiency, obviously the more sustainable you are, the more resource efficient fundamentally you are. So there's also an economic driver to do that. What is key and important for us, and what we've learned along the way and along the journey on sustainability, is certainly how do you measure it? So do you have the right KPIs in place for the specific things that you want to accomplish? And that's actually not an easy process, because since, as I've just explained, sustainability is a fairly complex topic when you look at it from all dimensions. So having the right KPIs in place, not overwhelmingly many, but sufficient to drive your progress, is actually very important. What we've chosen as a company is to build some of that into our structure. So we have a chief sustainability officer in our company. We have a sustainability council in our company. We publish an annual sustainability report. I think it's the 5th or the 6th. I have to be honest right now, I wouldn't even know exactly the answer. It's the 5th or the 6th that we're publishing this year, that talks about the progress that we make. And last but not least, we've chosen for a number of years to be rated by EcoVadis. So we've chosen an independent agency to rate our company. And I'm proud to say that we've last year accomplished actually an EcoVadis Platinum rating, which puts you into the top tier 1% of companies being rated by EcoVadis. And when you think about it, actually kind of for a company of our scale, it's not just that only a fraction of the companies chooses to be rated by EcoVadis. I think globally roughly is 75,000 companies, if I recall correctly. And with Kraton, we're in this top 1% tier that succeeded with their journey in a way that basically kind of you could accomplish such a result. So holistic approach from our end, built as a core element into the daily and strategic operations of our company, but also we've given it an organizational structure to support it.
Thank you, Torsten. Chris, what's Univar's perspective on sustainability moving forward?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And I just want to thank all the panelists, right? It's great to see our principal partners that are so passionate about this subject and wanted to be a part of it. For Univar Solutions as a global leader in the specialty ingredient and chemical distribution space, we really believe it's our responsibility to help lead the way, if you will, and not only come up with a plan, but communicate right? That we have a plan, that we have milestones along the journey, I think as Ramesh said, that we're on, that we're coming out with our rating from 2021, but we have specific milestones in 2025, 2030, with regard to getting to a net zero contributor number is set up by the UN. That's one of our sustainability platforms by 2050. But it's more than that. It's more than one, as you've all alluded, one measurement, right? You think about the environmental aspect, you think about the societal, the governance. So really putting in place a comprehensive plan that, Thorsten, to your point, that you can have an independent company come in and measure you, and as you're measuring yourself, to make sure that it's transparent in what you're doing. I think at the end of the day, it's not just the right thing to do, but when you think about what employees and investors and customers are looking for, they have a lot of options, and I think they consider all of these aspects of sustainability in their options today.
Thanks, Chris. Kieran, please tell us from your perspective, how's Eastman going about sustainability and measuring sustainability?
Thanks, Dan, and again, echo the other panelists. It's great to be here to share our thoughts and inspiration when it comes to sustainability. At Eastman, our growth objectives require that we intertwine sustainability and innovation together. In fact, our people are key to that, as are our customers and our value chain partners. We've used the UN Sustainable Development Goals as a framework to help us describe how we're about to tackle sustainability. And we really identified 3 critical impact areas. One is mitigating climate change, the second one is around mainstreaming circularity, and the third one is caring for society. And if I take the first one, mitigating climate change, that means reducing emissions by 1/3 by 2030, innovating with our products to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions farther down the value chain, and then finally to be carbon neutral by 2050. When it comes to mainstreaming circularity, our plans are to recycle 500 million pounds of waste plastic by 2030. And at the same time, that's going to require value chain collaboration and help us actually overcome the complexity of recycling and managing supply chains around that. And then finally, when it comes to caring for society, this is really a program that addresses inclusion and diversity, but also addresses society's most pressing needs. Now, those are very high level, audacious goals. How do you make that actionable? And the way we think about that in our adhesives business is we've really broken it down into 4 areas. One is the beginning of life, material story. What is the end of life? What is the environmental footprint of those materials? And then finally, how do we address safety and health? And so we've had a history of collaborating along the value chain, collaborating with customers. And so we'll continue to leverage those relationships, but this time from a sustainability perspective. And so we believe we've got a unique product platform that enables people to reduce plastic waste, support the evolution of the circular economy, and then deliver value to stakeholders and the global community. So that can include bio-based resins with favorable LCAs. It can include low VOC tackifying resins, amorphous polyolefins that enable the greater use of hot melt adhesives, and in future, forthcoming recycled content materials that address a broad range of market needs from a sustainability perspective. We also believe that when you bring the entire ecosystem together, you actually create a better circle.
Thank you, Kieran. I would like to transition now into questions that were prepared for the audience. This is also a reminder for our participants to please use the chat function to start preparing and submitting your questions. We will try to get to all of your questions during the allotted time period, but if we're not able to, we will follow up afterwards. So let me start with the first question. Ramesh, from the standpoint of sustainability, could you give us a specific example of how your business is addressing climate change in the paint and coatings industry?
Sure. Thank you, Dan. I'll start by talking about the BHAG, or Big Hairy Audacious Goals. Most companies have announced targets which are to become carbon neutral by 2030, 35, 40, 45, 50. Dow has also announced this target to be carbon neutral when it comes to scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, including the product benefits. But announcing those goals will require investments in intermediate steps and target setting for this intermediate period, where we have nearer term targets to reduce our carbon footprint. And we have done that as well. Our 2030 target is to reduce our annual carbon emissions by about 5 million metric tons versus the 2020 baseline, which corresponds to about a 15% reduction. That would be on top of the 15% we have already realized through the 2005 to the 2020 period. Now, in order to achieve these 5 million metric ton reduction in GHG in a very methodical way on our path to then starting to reduce our GHG emissions even further, we expect to allocate $1 billion annually of our CapEx to decarbonize our asset base. And we have announced the building of the world's first net zero ethylene cracker and its derivatives to reduce our own scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. This type of a cracker will produce both polyethylene in our plastics business and also downstream derivatives for the other parts of the Dow businesses too. We continue to invest in renewable power. Today we use about 850 megawatts of renewable power, and in doing so we maintain our position as a leading user of clean energy in the chemical industry, and we are among the top 20 users, and this number is expected to grow substantially. We are ahead of our plan because renewable power is getting cost competitive. And because Dow is vertically integrated, we are exploring the use of lower carbon processes for making polymer binder feedstocks. We can do this from our own production, but also working with external partners, we can source lower carbon feedstocks externally, which will then find their way into the polymer binders and additives that we market through our Dow Coating Materials business. We have begun offering paint binders that contain bio-based inputs. Bio-based inputs can reduce the carbon footprint with properly sourced feedstocks, and they have the ability to partially replace petrochemical inputs in select markets. In architectural coatings, at least, we see that when painting happens, the new coat of paint is always put on the old coat of paints, and during the lifetime of a house, you might have 8 to 10 coats. So these coatings or paints end up as being carbon sinks for at least 30, 40, 50 years, or whatever the lifetime of that wall is. In the paints and coatings market, we also have pioneered the water-borne technology, and through waves of innovation, our acrylic binder products enable paint formulators to increase the durability of the products. When products are more durable, that means the repainting frequency is higher. So we wait longer before we have to repaint, and this uses less material over the lifetime of an exterior wall or an interior wall or any coated surface. And we have platform products such as opaque polymers that can replace TiO2. Titanium oxide works well in hiding performance, but it also has a fairly large carbon footprint and water use. So we can do this while keeping the performance of the paint constant, or even improve upon it by proper choice of binders and synthetic pigments. So these are some of the things we are doing from a corporation standpoint, from a vertical integration standpoint, from a binder standpoint, and then enabling our customers to reduce their footprint of the formulated paints and coatings. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Ramesh. Let me turn to Ria. Ria, can you give us an example how Cabot has integrated sustainability into its product offerings?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, sustainability continues to be really top of mind of our customers, and we are actively working with many of our key customers to advance technologies and develop solutions that not only support the mega trends that we see around sustainability, but also to help them achieve some of their own goals. And Cabot has, in addition, has recently announced our net zero ambition as well. And part of that is twofold: not only our own footprint, but also to ensure that we're doing product innovation to be able to provide products that enable our customers to achieve their own goals as they transition as well to reducing their footprint. So some examples of how we are innovating products to deliver that kind of critical performance, and we're doing it in a multitude of applications, including CASE, to realize these benefits. And one example of that is our Carbosil Ultra Bond, 5780 fumed silica for structural adhesive applications. This product can enable improved adhesion of epoxy adhesives to a variety of substrates, which enables automotive lightweighting by supporting increased load carrying capacity and multi-material bonding. By reducing vehicle weight, it improves fuel economy and lowers greenhouse gas emissions. So that's an example of one such product innovation that we continue to work on. Another example is our Emperor Specialty Carbon Blacks for automotive base coat applications that provide deep black color with excellent dispersibility in waterborne formulations. These carbons support the transition to water-based coatings, thereby reducing volatile solvent usage without compromising color performance. The improved dispersibility of these carbons can also result in reduced dispersant usage and significantly reduced milling times, which can reduce not only energy consumption, but extend the grinding media life. All of these result in substantial savings and improved footprints for our products that our customers are looking for as we continue to innovate. And our strategy is to continue to leverage our strengths in leading in performance and sustainability, not only today and in the future. And the company has developed a robust product sustainability goal that includes ensuring that every new product development and process that we work on has some net sustainability benefit. And that is a part of our KPI and reporting structure as a part of our goals.
Very interesting. Thank you, Ria. Torsten, could you describe a few examples where sustainability features are critical, but not necessarily obvious at a first glance?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Dan. Let me describe two examples where it's not obvious and one example where it's obvious so that people see the difference. As most of our customers know and most of you know, we are a company that has petrochemical products and bio-based products under one roof, our pine chemical and our polymers business. And certainly there's always, or often there is the belief out there with consumers, even with customers, bio is good and petrochemical is bad. A lot of the panelists here actually represent products that are petrochemical products, right? So the reality is actually not true to have that simplicity. So on the polymer side of the house, when we look at our HSPC type of molecules that we design around specific functionality, including kind of what CASE is representing, we are designing these molecules around resource efficiency. We're designing them around processing conditions, for example, energy use. We're designing them around to allow for really a maximum of design flexibility on the customer side. And what is important from our end is, in order to truly determine how valuable product is in a specific application, is actually listen exactly to the customer's needs and exactly trying to find out what is the target that the customer tries to accomplish, so that we actually can go back to the drawing board and either pick from the wealth of our products that we have available, pick the right product that we recommend, or design a product around that specific customer need. Because what we've seen over the years is certainly, and I think, Dan, you alluded to it in your introductory speech, sustainability for every person, for every customer has a different angle. They have a specific need that they're trying to accomplish, and only that collaboration at the end of the day allows you to determine what is it and what degrees of freedom do we have to come up with a solution and find a problem to the solution. And that could be energy reduction, reduction of volatile components, longer life cycle of a product, et cetera, et cetera. And you only accomplish that through that collaboration. Now, when we switch to the pine chemical side of the house, let me bring one example. One of the products that we sell from pine is tall oil fatty acids. It's truly and currently a fatty acid. And fatty acids, chemistry is today compete in the world with fatty acids. So you have basically pine-based fatty acids, but you have soy-based fatty acids, palm-based fatty acids, rapeseed-based fatty acids. There's a broad range of products. So you could say from a customer's perspective, yeah, it's all bio. So what's the difference, right? So kind of the fact of the matter is, since we're using a side stream of the paper industry as a raw material, as our original feedback stock for our pine chemical business, we're not competing with food chains by any means. We're not having any change on land use change, and both are very significant implications in order to determine is your product more or less sustainable. And actually, if you calculate that, you can even calculate the greenhouse gas footprint differences that just the absence of land use change can make. And you do that through life cycle analysis. You do that actually in trying to understand really in terms of your real data, what is it that I bring to the table? So those are two examples where actually the differences are not necessarily, or the features are not necessarily obvious if you're not educating yourself in more detail to the specific customer needs and using tools like life cycle analysis. The example where it's probably a little more obvious is our circular product line. Our circular product line specifically has been designed in order to improve recyclability, in order to close the material recycle loop, for example, for polypropylene. So when we designed that product line, we specifically had these improved recyclability features in mind to go towards the circular economy. There it's obvious, but even there it is in detail, what do you specifically do in what specific application? What does that recycled product end up with in what specific end use? So overall, those are examples where I've mentioned two examples. Maybe the differences are not the obvious. In the last example, specifically designed with circular economy in mind.
Thank you, Torsten. Chris, do you see sustainability as a short-term or long-term focus for the industry?
The answer would be yes and yes, right? I mean, I think there are things that we can do now and things we'll be working toward later. The bottom line is we want to leave this place. And when I say place, I think of the earth, I think of our communities, I think about our businesses better than we found them, right? So, making steps to be sustainable. Yes, we're going to need some technology and some infrastructure, I think, along the way to get to, our end goal. If there is one, if there's not one that we're continually working to improve. But there are things we can do every day. A perfect example is we have a facility that has a rail car picker on it, right? So we have a lot of rail sites within Univar Solutions, particularly in North America. And it was a diesel burning vehicle. And we investigated when it was time to either maintain it or replace it. What do you do? And we found out there was an electric version of this. And we've actually moved at that time. It was the right time to do it. It was something that we could do now. And it's proven very valuable for us. We're investigating other things, right? And there are simple things we can all do today, like making sure we've got LED lighting, right? Looking at solar lighting where possible. We're investigating thermal heating of some warehouses where it makes sense. So, there are definitely things that we can do in the short term. And then I think continuing to follow those up and challenging our long-term dates and our milestones along the journey, are what we're looking at in the future, right? You think about electric vehicles. Univar Solutions is a lot of things. technical selling, solution sales. But at the end of the day, we move a lot of specialty chemicals from place to place. And so you think about that impact, and where the technology is just not all the way there today. When you're talking about a tank truck, moving a tank truck around an electric vehicle, we're looking at it, right? We're gonna take, I think, the first steps toward our first electric vehicles, but then we've got to prove out the viability on that it's going to prove back, and that's where some of the technological advances are going to have to take place for the future to meet some of those goals that we have in mind.
Thanks, Chris. Kieran, in your opinion, where do you see consumer demand for sustainable case products?
This is one of the reasons why industrial marketing is a great career to follow, because you get to try and make those connections back from consumers, which we all are, back to how chemical companies need to try and innovate. And so sustainability is no different. Clearly, consumer preferences are driving innovation, and actually it's forcing companies like ours and our customers to really think about changing materials and getting people to do things differently in these kinds of industries sometimes can be very difficult, especially when you think about complex formulations. So trying to understand the diverse set of end-use markets that our business serves today, everything from hot melt adhesive formulations, pressure-sensitive adhesive formulations, thermoplastic modification, elastomer modification, that's what our materials do. And so we commissioned a study recently where we surveyed 100 companies in the B2B environment that were all serving a diverse set of end-use markets in North America and Europe. That was automotive, it was consumer packaged goods, it was construction, electronics, and furniture. And some of the key themes that emerged from that survey, and there's a wealth of information in there, we're just unpacking it as we speak, but half of the leaders that we spoke to believe that sustainability is a fundamental mindset of business, and it's a strategic competitive endeavor for them to follow. About a third of them believe that carbon neutrality, addressing circular economy, and waste elimination were their most important goals, and then almost 2/3 believe that sustainable solutions lead to a positive brand impact. So that then carries all the way through the value chain. We also found that the respondents were really at two ends of the stage of execution. Some were very, very early stage of the execution, whereas some were really optimizing, refining the implementation of their sustainable solutions. And then finally, to close, we really found two differences in end markets. So customers that had ambitious carbon emission reductions and were trying to optimize raw materials, they were really in automotive, building construction, and furniture industries. Whereas customers in consumer good markets, they were really looking to make marketing claims on finished products, looking for a better beginning of life or end of life story that can be communicated simply to consumers. So I think this is an ongoing journey for each of us to try and better understand, those end market nuances, and so that we can better implement sustainable solutions in future. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Kieran. It's time for us to transition into audience questions. This is also a reminder to our audience participants to please use the chat function if you haven't submitted a question and you do have a question to ask of our panelists. So I'm going to take these in order. Chris, looks like you're first in line here for a question addressed to you, and it reads, as a customer, how can Univar Solutions help me with my sustainability plan?
That's a great question. And what I would say is, for all of our customers, right, you're not in this alone, right? Everybody's on this journey. From opportunity that will be created from sustainability, I think is one reason why people should look at it and start to talk about it. And I guess to link that to the infrastructure bill, for example, The infrastructure bill is going to create a lot of opportunity because we need new roads, new bridges, right? We need sustainable offerings as we coat that bridge. And I think about as a government spending money and they get two bids, if one of these companies has a plan and another doesn't, who's going to get the edge, right? And what does that plan look like? I would say also in sustainability, we've been doing it for years and we'll continue to do it, which is that government regulatory aspect of it as VOCs change and technology needs to be brought into the labs, into our customers. How can we help them make sure that they're meeting those regulatory changes? I think that's a place that Univar Solutions can help its customers. And quite honestly, I'm fortunate enough that I have an outstanding global sustainability department. So for our customers that are struggling and they're looking at their business and they're wondering, well, can I talk to somebody, right? If my team doesn't have the answer, we can put them in contact with someone that's what they do for a living. I mean, that's their total focus, is looking at our company and how they can make it more sustainable for, again, all the ESG thought processes out there. We mimic a lot of what I've heard on this panel, right? I mean, we want to reduce waste, we want to recycle more, we want to be a net zero by a certain date, right? For Univar Solutions, it's 2050 if we don't move it up. We want to have good diversity and transparency, and all these are all programs that we all touch and would be happy to share with customers to help them on their journey.
Thank you, Chris. Kieran, I have a question for you next. Is there a challenge to the myriad certifications globally? And do you feel sustainability has a good representative in these?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the challenges for all of us, right? I think Chris just alluded to it. This is an incredibly complex subject. The global certification landscape is complex. I mean, there are hundreds of certification program schemes out there. We're aware of, a couple of dozen that are relevant just to the industries that we serve. When I think about this, Torsten mentioned EcoVadis earlier. That's an enterprise-wide certification program. There are programs that then step down a level that really start to think about either an individual site or a facility or a building. So that could be, things like ISCC, it could be LEED certification. And then when you really get down one level deeper, it really comes down to product level certification. Whether that be, cradle to cradle that's been around for many, many years, whether it be around sustainable forestry. So there are a number of product level certifications as well. I think it's very much part of the wild, wild west at the moment. If anybody thinks back to the battle between Betamax and VHS several decades ago now, I think the list continues to grow. I think it can be confusing for people when faced with a customer request, right? How do I handle this new request? Is it simple LCA, or is it, I say simple, or is it much more complex, or it's a new program that people are trying to learn about? So I think it's difficult to understand which ones will remain important, although some are remaining important. So for example, ISCC, when it comes to bio content claims or recycled content claims, it's fast emerging as the go-to certification body for people who want to get materials approved with that program. I mean, I think regardless, this is not unlike companies like the ones represented here today, whether it be FDA requirements or STM requirements. I think we have deep technical and product stewardship expertise, ongoing engagement with these certification bodies, and I think that helps bring clarity and help us work with our customers, not just our direct customers, but throughout the value chain to help meet those certification requirements. So yes, I think the answer is it is challenging, and yes, sustainability is very well represented.
Thank you, Kieran. Ria, this next question is aimed at you. How has sustainability influenced your organization's activities? around product innovation and customer engagement?
I think in some really foundational ways, as the rest of the team has talked about, we have done similar things in that we've taken not only our corporate sustainability program that talks about these broad pillars that we work under, but also working very closely with our businesses to identify the mechanisms in which we can understand what the mega trends are, what are the customer needs, and how to build out that collaboration more effectively. And so as a part of our broad program, we've established a very robust product sustainability evaluation process where we are able to look at what are the needs of our customers, bring that information in through the business, able to work with our technology department to technology group to identify what are those sustainability benefits that we're looking to innovate into the chemistry, and make sure that we have robust communications programs to make sure that we're able to provide that information back out to the customers to help them select the right products that provide the right benefits to them throughout this process. And then identifying ways in which we can really grade ourselves or have KPIs associated with those sustainability benefits. So the other things that we're doing is spending time on developing life cycle analysis of our key products so that we can provide relevant information back to our customers so that they were able to use that within their own sustainability programs. And so whether it's a life cycle analysis of some foundational products or also working and partnering with customers to provide and partnership with them in their own life cycle analysis so that we can give them the information that they need, not only from our particular products, but also from our suppliers that feed into that process. So enabling that process. And then also collaborating with key technology partners so that we're not only working with our customers, but other key partners that help in the development of technologies across the board.
Thank you, Ria. Ramesh, this question is aimed at you. Can you give us an example of how your business is tackling materials of concern in paints and coatings?
Sure, Dan. Within DCM, we look at upcoming regulations well ahead of when they are enacted. And this is important. While regulations are a important goal to achieve over a period of time, it's not sufficient to wait until the regulations are developed. One has to develop alternatives well before the regulations actually come into place. So this is important to follow and anticipate regulations when they will come in for a period of time. Once the regulations are set or even announced, the playing field for everyone is already leveled. So we have to pay close attention to not just government regulations, but which way the value chain and the end consumer preferences are moving. What generally happens is that consumer preferences in many instances move ahead of actual government regulations, and the value chain moves based on consumer preferences. A good example would be big box retailers would respond to certain products which are not preferred by end consumers, and they would impose these limitations well before the government actually enacts regulations barring their use. So how this plays out is, over the years, this has led to the development of ultra low VOC binders that have low odor or emissions, and a large portfolio of products that are now APEO free in architectural paints. Whereas in the industrial and the specialty coating space, Dow has waterborne technology that reduces VOCs by 80 to 90% versus the solvent-borne counterparts, while retaining necessary durability and performance. In paper coatings, for example, fluorochemicals were used in the past, but amid rising concern, we have developed acrylic binders which allow our formulators to not use any fluorochemicals in their packaging. And now that we have a work from home option, this work from home option is going to stay well past the COVID pandemic, and it's going to be a more permanent situation where hybrid workplaces are going to be in vogue. We used to spend 85 to 90% of our time indoors before COVID hit, and post-COVID, because of the hybrid work situation, we are expected to spend even more than 90% indoors. So while we are looking at a paint as having an aesthetic function and a surface protection function, we have now also built in a pollutant capture functionality, which actively captures formaldehyde emissions from different things within your room actively. So we are building on functionality that is expected from paints to make it even more active. And finally, we have at least one technology which allows our customers who make thermal paper, for example. These are the papers that are used in grocery store receipts on packaging labels from Amazon, where they do not have to use any BPA, which is a material of concern and a banned material in Europe for thermal papers. Now, this ban actually came into effect in 2021, but we won the US EPA Green Challenge Award for this innovation way back in 2017. So we were thinking that eventually BPA will be regulated, which happened in 2021, but we saw that consumers are already moving away from BPA to BPA-free options long before that. So it's about anticipating and then reacting and being ready and innovating well ahead of the regulations.
Thank you, Ramesh. Torsten, this next question is aimed at you. What does it take to be successful and bring the organization on board to make sustainability a winning proposition?
Thank you, Dan. This is a great question. So the simple answer is walk the talk, but frankly speaking, it's not that simple if I just say that. So we have a lot of employees at Kratom that are very proud actually of exactly kind of being a EcoVadis company, having sustainability, having a chief sustainability officer. So a lot of employees these days take a lot of pride in that specific focus of our company. But that alone is not itself. So what that means is your company is committed, your company is transparent about it to employees, to customers, to investors. But you have to build a framework around that, and you have to actually enable them. So what does it take then to go on that next part of the journey? And so you start with the customer side. We can do life cycle analysis for our products, and we have a great flexibility in terms of design features for our products, but we can still only do a cradle to gate assessment for our life cycle analysis. Now, we may be able to do estimates of what it does in the value chain, but eventually our customers know, and it's much better. And I always encourage the organization to work with our customers specifically to find out what is really that they're after, what's the design feature that helps their sustainability journey, and how can we design that into our products. So we've built something like that we call a sustainability framework, for example, on the marketing side, that we're using in order to discuss during innovation products, during specific customer project driven discussions. Are we actually on the right track? Are we considering all the elements? Are we actually looking at that? And we're making that a decision criteria. As you know, this is not a standalone decision criteria. At the end of the day, the complexest topic, but you have to bring that as one of your many decision criteria in your processes, in your innovation process, in your commercialization product process, to find out whether we are right or wrong. And last but not least, I would say one of the things that I keep encouraging our organization, and that's the mindset that we embrace, it's eventually a journey. So you have to be, in particular on a complex topic like sustainability, you have to be absolutely willing to be a learning organization. Only if you're a learning organization, if you're willing to accommodate the inputs from your customers, from the markets, from changing regulations all the time and constantly, you will be successful on your journey. If you believe what I have today works tomorrow, then actually you're falling behind, because the world is evolving very fast. And so encouraging to have that mindset of being a learning and organization and being constantly adjusting your point of views for the things that you work on is, I think, most critical in my opinion. If you do all that right, I think there's still a long way to go, but you get your people on the topic, on the journey, and you actually have a nice ride.
Thank you, Torsten. It looks like we have time for maybe one or two more questions. This question is for Ramesh. Ramesh, given the challenges of supply chain issues today, does this help or hinder Dow's transition into a more comprehensively sustainable portfolio?
And clearly, the last year has been challenging between ice storms and the power disruption that happened in Texas, and COVID, which has affected our ability to keep our facilities staffed. So in that respect, the supply chain disruptions have been quite challenging to us and to our customers. But we did plan for some of these, but some of them, of course, are once in a 100-year occurrences. It did have a negative impact on our ability to supply, but we were able to be resilient about it, and we were able to supply our key customers the best we can. So during this period, did sustainability efforts take a backseat? I wouldn't say that they did. Maybe there was a pause where the focus was really on how am I going to keep my customers supplied during this period of intense shortages. So we are past that point, fortunately, and things are improving right now quite well. It did teach us that we have to keep planning for the exigencies which we have faced, and that's the best thing we can do by learning from what was the nature of the disruption, how did we prepare for it, and how did we not prepare for it, and then not make the same planning mistakes, or be prepared even better for the future.
Thank you, Ramesh. I can definitely concur. This was an unprecedented event and the worst that I've seen in my 43-year career. We only have time for one more question. This particular question is for Ria. Ria, what's the most challenging issue when it comes to regulatory requirements now and moving forward?
So Dan, I would say that there are quite a few challenges from a regulatory standpoint when it comes to sustainability. I think as most industry is faced with sharp reductions in our greenhouse gas intensity, and there is a myriad of regulatory requirements in place and continuing to come in place as we look at reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, as well as reductions in other emissions such as SOx and NOx, for example, or particulates. And those continue to create challenges for organizations, particularly from an investment standpoint, to achieve those reductions, as well as ensuring that the technology and the infrastructure is going to be available, and that we can advocate and have the right advocacy engagement with policymakers to ensure that the right policies are going in place to support that transition, particularly when it comes to infrastructure and supporting new developing technology. I think the other areas where we are continued to challenge that we may not have before is the level of documentation and transparency around our programs and disclosures as we continue to see additional regulatory adoption of standards like the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. So not only has there been an increased interest from investors to continue to be more transparent in both what are the potential financial impacts to climate change, not only from a risk standpoint, but from an opportunities for organizations to take advantage of as we move to this lower emission economy, but also what is the cost for those action plans that are going in place. And what we're seeing is an adoption of some of those same kind of standards that are in development in that kind of investor insurance space to it becoming adopted in the regulatory environment. So that requires organizations to have stronger record keeping or transparency around their KPIs and their financial implications of some of their action plans, and then being able to also have robust enough systems for them to be audited, particularly if we see some further adoption of these standards by regulatory agencies like the SEC, for example, in the US.
Thank you, Ria. I'm afraid we've run out of time. I would like to take this time to thank everyone involved for taking time out from your busy schedule to join us today. For our participants, thank you for the excellent questions that you've sent us. Again, we will follow up with responses to those we weren't able to get around to answering. For our panel, thank you so much for sharing your sustainability journey. I know, speaking for myself, it's been a wonderful learning experience. Thank you, and this concludes our webinar.